Welcome to this monthly edition of the Shared Security Show. And joining me is the Andy Richter of host sidekicks, Scott Wright.
Oh, wow. Thanks a lot, Tom.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure if I have to come up with like insults towards you or something like that now, but in keeping with our corny introductions, I'd like to introduce the Barbara Walters of cybersecurity.
I'll take that.
Dana Mantilia. Welcome, Dana.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I just want to sort of clarify. So, Dana does a lot of cybersecurity videos, like an uncountable number. I was scrolling through her YouTube channel and it's just like, wow, where does she get the time? So maybe that'll be one of my first
YouTuber,
questions.
actually.
Yeah.
My kids would say you're a famous YouTuber. So
she's an influencer.
I'll take that too. Wow, look at all these compliments. I'm an influencer, famous YouTuber, Barbara Walters. All right.
All right. Well, there's got to be a sound clip in there somewhere you can use for your podcast too. So anyway, well, thanks a lot for joining us, Dana. And so Tom and I, we get together every month and talk about some cybersecurity topic, usually often with Kevin Johnson. But it's great to have you on the show this time. And I think we'd like to just start by maybe learning a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into security, and especially how you got into doing these cool security videos.
So I definitely did not come from the security world. I have grown up in the car business. My family has owned a Ford dealership for ever and ever, and I have run the Ford dealership for 20-something years. And then I'm going to say about 7 years ago, I opened an insurance agency so that we could offer insurance to our clients. And then probably about 5 years ago, I wanted to offer identity theft protection to them. And I couldn't find a product that was B2B that I could then offer to C. So I got together with a software company out in California. We came up with a product and it was great. It does credit monitoring, dark web scans, the whole kit and caboodle. And then after that's when I realized how much education is needed, not only with just regular people, with small businesses, around identity thieves, cyber crimes, scams in general. And so I thought, wow, we all really need to start protecting ourselves about this. And, even just a few years ago, I think the term cybersecurity now is light years from where it was even a couple of years ago. So that is good, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I was like, well, how am I going to do this, right? I don't come from a technical background, so I don't really have any, weight to throw around here. And so I thought, well, I want to do something that's going to be entertaining that people are going to remember. But I had to be very careful because, I have this product. This is a serious product, an identity theft protection product, right? It's called Identron. So I didn't want to get laughed off the stage where they're saying, what is this crazy woman doing these videos? And she has an identity theft protection product. Like, who is ever going to sign up for that? So I thought about it for a while and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to go crazy right out of the gate. So I did a couple of videos and, didn't really get any attention or anything. And then I did a video with my daughter's American Girl dolls on synthetic identity. And I just broke it down very basic as to how somebody could, steal a child's social security number and use it. And I got some DMs. All these people were like, oh, thank you so much. I didn't even know that was a thing. And the way you explained it with the dolls, I actually understood it. So I was like, okay, they're not throwing me off, the stage yet. So I kind of kept going a little bit. And I think I've had just the opposite reaction because I think people just see me as a regular person that they can, identify with. I'm a mom,
Yeah, really important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why they kind of, they look at them. And I also try to make sure they're very short, very focused, and then add a little humor if I can, because my goal is that someone's going to remember this information if they ever wind up in one of these situations. Like, oh, that lady on LinkedIn was talking about something like this.
That's awesome. So did I have to ask though, did you ever do any of those great, TV car commercials for your family car business?
Yes, I used to do all the commercials. So that was my big claim to fame. I'd be walking around Stop and Shop. People be like, oh, you're the girl that does the car commercials. I'm like, yeah.
So you're used to the fame and fortune. Okay.
Sign and drive.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Today only. Come on down.
That's awesome. And so you're starting a new podcast.
Yes, I am. So I started doing these videos and they're on my YouTube channel, which I just started a couple of months ago. And that's for the Department of Defense in the US. And they're rolling out a new cybersecurity, CMMC. And so I interview people that are very proficient in that and put them on there. And then I thought, well, I really want to also have one that regular people and small business owners that are not in the government space can learn something about. So my new podcast, which is yet to be rolled out. I have done quite a few recordings though so far. So it's going to be called Cyber Smart with Dana, and
Awesome.
that's just going to be same thing, short little, almost like micro podcasts. And so there'll be short 15-minute little clips on hopefully little things that people can just learn, and hopefully it'll be a little entertaining. But I have some really cool guests on here. Like I have one lady, this is not funny, but she was part of a romance scam, and she was scammed out of $1 million.
Wow.
$1 million. I was like, whoa, $1 million, that's a lot of money. So anyway, the guy actually came clean at the end, and he said, I have to tell you something. And she was like, what? She had no idea. So
wow.
That was bad. And then I also have one that I'm the guy that, the New Year's Eve ball, the big crystal ball. So his job was to guard that for like 8 years on New Year's Eve. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Like he just threw it out there, like one of the, 25 things that he does. And I was like, wait a minute, that's so cool. And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, wow, how big is it? So he takes pictures with it and all this stuff. So anyway, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I got a podcast coming out.
Oh, that is awesome. That's good. That's so hopefully when you do actually launch, we'll definitely promote it, and
thank you.
Have you back once in a while to talk about that. But I just wanted to ask you, we just finished, it's November 1st. We just finished Cybersecurity Awareness Month. How did that go for you?
Well, I think like most people in the business, it was very, very busy, right? Because it's the one time a year everybody's like, we better talk about cybersecurity. And then Halloween comes and you're like, whoo, we're done with that till next year, which, that's not really the right way to be looking at this. And I think that's why cybersecurity has failed up until this point, is because it's very boring. Nobody wants to learn about it. And it is like a check the box. And it's not a check the box. So that's the problem, is it's got to be part of our culture, part of our everyday awareness, that, just like we lock the door when we leave the house, we have to start thinking about, things like that. So, it's busy, but it needs to be part of every month.
Yeah. Anything memorable from the past month?
Anything memorable? Oh, well, I feel like I repeated myself 100 different times with all the different people I was talking to, but that's okay. It's all for good cause. I don't think anything too crazy happened that I could remember.
Wow, that's good.
I love the one video that you just published recently about life back in 2019.
Yeah.
And in fact, you have that one book you're reading, The Pigeon Needs a Bath. And I remember the pigeon books from when my kids were, really small.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me because, like you had said, people come to your channel, they see someone, just like them, right? Reading, one of the pigeon books to their kids, right? Mm-hmm. I love that a lot. So
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anything else you'd like to add or just sort of throw out there in terms of what's on your mind these days? We do have a bit of a topic. If we have a bit of time, we can chat about, but just wanted to sort of give you a sort of chance to open things up.
Well, I do, like I mentioned a little bit, the reason why I don't think cybersecurity has really worked too well is because, most people, if you said cybersecurity, they'd think the IT people are in charge of that. Oh, the IT people, they deal with all that, right? We don't need to worry about it. They're taking care of it. And the problem is that, yes, they do deal with some of it. They deal with the firewalls and all the hardware and all that kind of stuff. But those are very technical, extremely intelligent people. And they do not want to be in charge of putting together a program where they have to go talk to people, human beings, and be like, this is what we're going to learn. We're going to stop doing this. Stop clicking on that. Don't do that. So that's the problem, is that we have the IT people over here that are not good at communicating with the regular people. And when I mean the regular people, I'm talking about the people that answer the phone, the people who are in sales, the people in the shipping department. These are all the people that are causing all the problems, 85% of the problems. So yes, the IT department is very important, but so we need to find a way that we can communicate to these people and then let it sink in. And that's why I think you have to have a little bit of fun with it, because people, if you look at some of the silly stuff we were watching on YouTube, it's really, really crazy. I mean, I'd say this one time, my husband went home, he's watching these big fat hillbillies in mud on ATVs go in these big, huge, disgusting, I guess, ponds of mud. I don't even know what they are. And they're getting flipping over, and he's sitting there laughing like he can't even believe. And I was thinking, see, this is exactly what it is. But the point being is that it's almost like mindless entertainment, but it's funny, makes you relax, but you're going to remember it. So if we could do something like that with this, so that people are going to learn it.
Yep.
And, like there's a couple of people that are doing some funny stuff out there. Some of it, one guy in particular who I absolutely love, Ian Murphy, he's very, very funny. He goes a little over the edge, though, in a little risque way, but anyway. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to find a way that it's going to be something that's you can incorporate into employees' day. They're going to remember and have some fun with it.
Yeah, that's really cool because I started teaching security awareness to businesses probably 10 years ago, and it was really common, that it would be the IT guy that was delegated responsibility for the awareness program, and he had no idea, didn't like talking in front of people, didn't want to talk to the training department at all, right? It was just like, let's just get this done under the the cover of night, and
yeah,
so it was
move on.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's really unfortunately the way the dynamics of the organizations have worked, and often they still do.
Are you looking for the very best products to protect your digital privacy? Well, Silent Pocket has everything you need with their patented product line of high-quality Faraday bags, backpacks, clutches, and wallets. Visit silentpocket.com today and receive 10% off your order by using discount code SHAREDSECURITY.
You want your organization to be secure and compliant and to have a healthy culture, but your employees' lack of awareness makes you vulnerable to data theft, fraud, and compliance penalties. It's frustrating that the boring, static training content that's being used today has failed to improve employees' ability to defend against cyber attacks. At ClickArmor, we know that without using gamification, it's extremely hard to get staff to understand how to avoid threats. Our gamified simulations and challenges have provided a 50% average improvement in thousands of employees' ability to spot phishing threats. Go to clickarmor.ca/sharedsecurity to get your free gamified phishing assessment for up to 500 employees. You'll see quickly how gamified simulations can help your team be more resilient and compliant and help avoid costly ransomware and fraud incidents. Let ClickArmor help you go from being an underappreciated, stressed out fall guy to being an innovative leader who's the catalyst for greater productivity in your organization.
And that kind of leads into the topic I was going to introduce right now. And it was the difference between what's a chief information security officer, what's a chief security officer, and now what's a cybersecurity officer, right? All these terms that people hear, that people have as different roles. Mm-hmm. And, what are those roles? What do they actually mean? And is there a difference between them? So I wanted to start with Tom, because Tom's worked in several different security companies. He's seen a lot of different customers doing application security consulting. Mm-hmm. And so I just sort of wanted to throw it to you, Tom, and get your thoughts, first of all, on what the difference is between these roles, because, they have been kind of sheltered from talking to people in the past, and want to sort of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the role of the CISO or all the different terms that you hear, I think it's really changed over the years where they have been more than just the person to blame if their company gets breached, right? You may have remember the stories years ago of CISOs being fired if there was a data breach because they must have messed up somewhere or didn't put in some type of control or didn't educate the user base properly, and so we had this breach. But now I think it's more of I think the responsibility has shifted more from blame to what can you implement and how can you help the business. And so I'm starting to see a shift in, that is almost, I wouldn't say a profit center, right? Because we know that security and IT and all those things, they cost money. It's more of an expense to the business. But I think there's more of a shift in that mindset where CISOs now are becoming, that type of role that is really helping the business, because I think more businesses now are realizing if we don't have security and if we don't tell our customers and our users that we truly care about security, I think that's bad for business.
Yeah. What do you think, Dana? Have you come across that as well?
Yeah. And, in addition to the roles changing, I also think there's going to be a new role that's going to be developing, which is the BISO, which is the Business Information Security Officer, which kind of is the translator between the CISO and the regular people. And I think that even small organizations will be able to develop this role. You could take somebody who handles your HR, and give them the additional skills to implement, because it is almost a compliance thing, but in a way you're saying, okay, well, this is something that we need to pay attention to. And the reason why I think this role is going to increase, and I don't mean to steal the stage if you want to go back to Tom, so just tell me to
go ahead.
Okay, it's because, like if you go back to 1985, I always say this is not 1985, people. However, it almost really is like 1985 because at that time was when computers started coming into the office, right? So you had these guys that were developing computers, again, extremely intelligent, technical people developing these computers. Those are not the people that then want to go to the office space and teach the people how to use those computers. So they had to come up with an implementation team. There were people that had understood a little bit of the technology, but mainly understood the application and how to get the user to benefit from using this versus the typewriter or, handwritten documents or something like that. So that is where I see that role kind of growing. And you're absolutely right. The CISO role has completely changed over the last few years or so.
Yeah. And I'll throw in sort of my observations. I did a lot of work over the first 10 years or so of my consulting career from 2003 or so onward. A lot of it with the federal government here in Canada. And they had an interesting structure that was defined by, it was called the Treasury Board. And I guess, I don't know who would be the equivalent in the US, probably the management, OMB or something like that, or whoever does the policies that all the departments are supposed to follow. But they basically said you have to have a departmental security officer who is responsible for all security, physical security, personnel security, IT security included. And there was also a CIO, or Chief Information Officer. And then there was somebody called an IT security coordinator who was supposed to link the two together because they couldn't really exist in the same line of command. And ideally, you didn't want to have that IT security coordinator involved in the day-to-day operations. You needed it to be an oversight role so that they didn't have too many conflicts of interest when it came down to, well, what do we do about this thing today, right? It should really be kind of objective in that sense. And so, I always sort of came across seeing the chief security, now it's called the chief security officer instead of the departmental security officer. But those guys were responsible for all security. And now we've got the chief information security officer in many enterprises. And that sort of, to me, seems a lot like the IT security coordinator role that I used to know in the Canadian government. And so it should really probably be an oversight role, but I think it's still in many ways is operational. A lot of the security operations, for example, would probably report to the CISO or whatever. I'm not sure if that's what you see all the time, Tom, or not.
It varies on the organization.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the biggest challenge we have still in terms of organization for security is there is no sort of one right way to organize an organization because, for example, I used to think, okay, well, above a certain size of organization, you might have a chief information security officer just because it's got so much, data flowing around. But it could even be, in a financial organization. You don't have to have a large number of people to have a large exposure or a large set of assets at risk. And so you might have a chief information security officer for a small financial organization where you wouldn't necessarily in some other type of industry.
I also think there's going to be a role increase in letting the clients, let's take that financial advisor you're talking about, or financial institution you're talking about, where we need to make sure that the clients know you're not going to get an email from us asking you to log in and update your password or your username. Yeah. That's not going to happen because if you don't proactively tell them that and they get an email and it looks very, very much like it's from your organization and they click in there and somebody takes over their account, unfortunately, they're going to hold that financial advisor responsible for that. So if we don't tell people, listen, this is how we do communicate with you and how we don't communicate with you. And same thing when a client calls into your office or somehow communicates into your office. And I've talked to financial advisors about this over and over again. And they say, oh, I would know who it was. If that was, Mr. Jones calling, I would know it's Mr. Jones. So I would never make a trade the wrong way or something like that. And I would say, yes, but what about if your assistant or a new assistant or somebody filling in answered that and acted upon, whatever it was? There should be some kind of client identification system in place so that not only, hey, this is Mr. Jones and my ID number is whatever it may be. It could be very, very simple, but something along those lines. Yeah,
that goes to the maturity processes, right? That I'm sure you're familiar with, those maturity models, right? The CMMC and other things where, you have a certain amount of repeatable process, and if somebody were to leave the role who's the expert in cybersecurity, and somebody else comes in, can they follow the predefined repeatable processes to make sure that it is all done the same way as it used to be, as long as it was being done properly, right? So those are really interesting issues, and now we see, the cybersecurity responsibility just sort of having appeared over the last few years. I think it's becoming really popular now, especially now even in the Canadian government. They've changed it from the IT security coordinator to the designated official for cybersecurity. So all of a sudden, cyber is in there, right? And I think one of the reasons is, for lack of a better term, nobody really defined it this way, but it's more of a default behavior that it used to be IT security, but now we don't want people to think it's just IT security, right? It has to be something bigger. It has to be able to address all of the types of malicious attacks that could happen on the organization beyond coming through our network. It could be by phone, it could be by SMS text message, right? And so I think that's why the role of cybersecurity has become more prominent in terms of the top level security responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't have any kind of an incident response plan in place, nothing, right? And something does happen, or maybe something is going on, you're not really sure. You need to make sure that you don't have employees that are on Twitter telling their 10,000 followers, hey, I'm at work right now and I think we're getting hacked, and you say, oh, that probably wouldn't happen. It might happen. It's like the Wild West. If you haven't told your employees what to say and not to say while we're maybe figuring out if something's going on, they're left to their own demise of what they think is appropriate. And they might not think that that's a big deal.
Exactly. And, that's why I think, it's actually nice that we have this opportunity to redefine a role that, okay, we'll call it cyber, but it's actually more business oriented, right? It's more talking to the normal people, as you put it, right? So, in general, I think it's good, even though we have certainly a lot of people in the IT security world that kind of hate the term cyber or cybersecurity. I think we have to put it to the best use we can now that we're stuck with it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's so many jobs that need to be filled in the cybersecurity IT, world, that I think that the more that we kind of let people know that, I'm a non-technical person, right? There's plenty for me to do in the cyber world, that there are other people that even if you're not a technical person, this is a great field to go into, because there's a lot that needs to be done on the human side of things, and not necessarily the technical side of things. So for the young people out there, it's a great
for sure. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to dedicate your life to cybersecurity or security in general. I did a webinar a few weeks ago called Becoming a Cybersecurity Champion, and it was really intended for anybody who has an interest and the energy and the time to spend on just trying to make their organization more secure. And it doesn't mean you have to have the responsibility for it, but there's a lot you can do as an individual just to be able to, learn about the stories that are relevant that you can tell people, to learn a little bit about how to analyze and identify, well, here are the things that were at risk. Here's what the threat was. And here is what could have been done to protect it, right? And if you can tell those kind of stories, then you can really help the cybersecurity or the IT security team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, Tom, do you want to wrap things up, or have any other questions?
Yeah, I don't, but I definitely want Dana to plug anything she'd like. And where can our listeners and watchers on YouTube find you and connect with you?
Well, I would say I'm always on LinkedIn. So I'm at my connection request maximum, but you can follow me and we can communicate messages and all that kind of stuff. So I'm on LinkedIn, and then you can go to YouTube and just type my name in, and my stuff will come up there too. You can
awesome.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, and you must subscribe to Dana's YouTube channel.
It's a must subscribe. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Dana. It's been really fun having you. I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime. Maybe when Kevin's here, it'll be a whole different dynamic. That would be fun.
Okay, sure. Love to.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll talk to you on the next show.